The message arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning at the United Earth Defense Command headquarters. Admiral James White stood at the window of his office, watching shuttles take off into the dawn sky when his computer chimed with an urgent priority alert. The message was simple but chilling: their allies, the peaceful Bright Walkers, were under attack. The Bright Walkers had been humanity's first alien contact just 5 years ago. They were gentle beings of light and crystal, seeking friendship among the stars. Their technology was beautiful but limited. They had never needed weapons. Their philosophy centered around healing and growth, making them valuable partners in medical research and environmental restoration. That's why the news of the attack hit so hard. The Drachnid Empire, a previously unknown alien force, had emerged from the dark space beyond mapped territory. They were systematically destroying Bright Walker colonies, harvesting their crystalline bodies for energy sources. "This cannot stand," Admiral White muttered, his weathered face reflecting in the window. He pressed the comm button on his desk. "Call an emergency meeting of the Defense Council. Now." Within an hour, the council chamber was filled with Earth's top military and diplomatic leaders. The holographic displays showed the devastating footage from the attacked colonies, once beautiful crystal cities reduced to rubble, surviving Bright Walkers fleeing in their elegant but defenseless ships. Admiral White stood before the council, his voice firm. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are at a crossroads. The Bright Walkers helped us cure 3 devastating diseases in the past 5 years. They taught us how to repair our planet's ozone layer. They asked for nothing in return except friendship. Now they need us." General Rose Martinez, her gray hair tied back in a severe bun, leaned forward. "The Drachnids have superior numbers and technology we don't fully understand. This could mean war on a scale humanity has never faced." "Then let it mean war," White responded, his blue eyes hard as steel. "Because if we don't stand up for our allies now, we stand for nothing. The Drachnids need to learn that Earth honors its friendships." The council debated for hours. The risks were enormous. Humanity had only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. Their fleet was small compared to the Drachnid armada. But in the end, they reached a unanimous decision. Earth would fight. The next day, Admiral White sent a message to the Drachnid Empire. It was broadcast on all known frequencies, translated into every alien language their computers could manage. The message was short, but it would change the course of galactic history. "To the Drachnid Empire, humanity has watched your unprovoked attacks on the Bright Walker civilization with growing concern. The Bright Walkers are under Earth's protection. You have 24 hours to withdraw from their territory and provide compensation for the damage you have caused. If you fail to comply, you will learn why, throughout human history, the most dangerous place in any world has been between us and those we have sworn to protect. This is not a negotiation. It is your only warning." The Drachnids' response came quickly. They destroyed another Bright Walker colony. They clearly didn't know humans very well. As Admiral White ordered Earth's fleet to battle stations, he remembered an old quote from human history: "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing." Well, humanity was done doing nothing. The stars themselves would remember what happened next. Earth's response was swift and unexpected. Instead of launching a direct assault, humanity revealed its first surprise: they had not been idle in the 5 years of friendship with the Bright Walkers. The human fleet split into 3 groups. While the Drachnids watched the main fleet gathering near Earth, smaller groups of ships slipped through hidden space lanes the Bright Walkers had shared with their human friends. These paths through space, invisible to most sensors, had been used by the peaceful crystal beings for exploration. Now, they would serve a different purpose. Admiral White stood on the bridge of the flagship, Terra's Shield, watching tactical displays. "Begin Operation Lighthouse," he commanded. The name was fitting. They would show the Drachnids that humanity could be as brilliant and dangerous as any light in the universe. The first sign that something was wrong came when 3 Drachnid supply bases went dark simultaneously. Human ships, using Brightwalker stealth technology combined with Earth's military innovation, had approached unseen. They didn't destroy the bases, they stole them. "Sir," Lieutenant Tom Baker reported, trying to hide a grin, "Project Hercules is complete. All 3 supply bases are under our control." The Drachnids had built their bases like fortresses, but they had never faced human hackers. Earth's cyber warfare teams, enhanced by Brightwalker crystal computing, sliced through their defenses like they weren't even there. By the time the Drachnid commanders realized what was happening, their own defense systems were turning against them. Meanwhile, the main human fleet made its move. Instead of attacking Drachnid warships, they targeted something else, the ships full of harvested Brightwalker crystals. Using precise laser strikes, they didn't destroy the ships. They freed them. The Drachnids watched in shock as their precious cargo of crystalline resources began to glow and move on its own. What they had seen as mere energy sources were actually dormant Brightwalkers, playing dead. Now awakened by carefully calibrated human energy beams, they emerged like avenging angels. "We learned something interesting from our friends," Admiral White transmitted to the Drachnid fleet. "Brightwalkers can't be killed by breaking them. Each piece remains alive, aware, and very unhappy about being harvested. You didn't capture resources. You just made a lot of very small, very angry allies for humanity." The Drachnid commander finally responded, his harsh voice filling the command channel, "This is impossible. You are a primitive species. You only achieved space flight recently." Admiral White's response was calm but carried an edge of steel. "Yes, we're young. But we've spent our entire history learning to fight against bigger, stronger opponents. We've mastered the art of turning weakness into strength. And here's something else you should know, humans get very creative when protecting their friends." As if to prove his point, the stolen supply bases began launching missiles. But they weren't normal missiles, they were loaded with a special cargo. Millions of tiny Brightwalker fragments, each one now powered by human technology, creating a swarm of living light that could eat through Drachnid ship hulls like cosmic piranha. "This is your second warning," White transmitted. "The next one won't be so gentle. Return all captured Brightwalkers, withdraw from their space, and we can still end this peacefully." The Drachnid response was predictable, they launched their main fleet toward Earth. They still didn't understand. Humanity wasn't fighting alone. They were fighting alongside friends who could turn every weapon used against them into a tool for victory. As Admiral White watched the massive Drachnid fleet approach, he felt strangely calm. "Send word to all ships," he ordered. "Execute Phase 2. Let's show them why you should never underestimate humanity's ability to protect its own." The real battle was about to begin. Phase 2 of humanity's plan revealed another aspect of Earth's creativity in war. As the massive Drachnid fleet approached, Admiral White gave the order that would showcase why humans were considered the galaxy's greatest innovators. "Launch the Fireflies," he commanded. Thousands of tiny ships, no bigger than shuttles, emerged from the human fleet. The Drachnids initially ignored them, focusing their scanners on the larger vessels. This was their first mistake. Each Firefly carried a unique payload, a combination of human plasma technology and Brightwalker crystal energy. "They thought we only used Brightwalker tech for medicine and healing," General Martinez commented from her command ship. "They never asked what would happen if we combined their energy manipulation abilities with our weapons research." The Fireflies darted between the massive Drachnid ships like insects around giants. Where they touched the hulls, they left behind tiny crystals that began to grow and spread like glowing frost. The Drachnid's mighty shields, designed to stop energy weapons and missiles, were useless against this new threat that was already inside their defensive perimeter. "Sir," Lieutenant Baker reported, "crystal coverage at 20% and growing. The Brightwalker fragments are rewriting the Drachnid ship's metal structure at the atomic level. This was humanity's secret weapon, not destruction, but transformation. The crystals weren't destroying the Drachnid ships, they were changing them. Every piece of metal they touched became a conductor for Brightwalker energy. The mighty warships were slowly turning into giant crystal batteries. The Drachnid commander's voice crackled over the comm, now showing the first signs of worry. "What are you doing to our ships?" Admiral White's response was almost gentle, "Teaching you something about humanity. We don't just fight wars, we solve problems. Your ships run on energy stolen from our friends. Now they're going to help us return that energy to its rightful owners." The crystal transformation reached 30%, then 40%. Drachnid weapons started failing as their power systems were redirected. Some ships began to drift, their engines crystallizing into beautiful but useless sculptures of light. "You'll kill thousands of our warriors," the Drachnid commander protested. "No," White replied firmly. "Unlike you, we don't need to kill to win. Every crystal on your ships is linked to our medical ships. Your crews will be kept in perfect stasis until you agree to our terms. They'll wake up healthy, safe, and hopefully wiser." The Drachnids launched a desperate counterattack, firing everything they had at the human fleet. But the transformed sections of their ships had other ideas. The crystals absorbed the weapon energy, growing faster and brighter. Each shot meant to destroy instead created more of the very thing they were fighting against. Admiral White watched the tactical display as more and more Drachnid ships went dark, their crews safely suspended in crystal stasis. "Send the final message," he ordered. The transmission went out to every remaining Drachnid ship: "Your fleet is now mostly neutralized. Your crews are safe but immobilized. We could have killed them all, but that's not who we are. Instead, we offer you a choice. Surrender now, return what you stole, and we'll help you develop ethical energy sources that don't require hurting others. Fight on, and we'll be forced to demonstrate why humanity's capacity for innovation extends to warfare as well as peace." As they waited for a response, Lieutenant Baker smiled. "Sir, do you think they'll understand the message this time?" Admiral White looked at the display showing hundreds of crystallized Drachnid ships glowing like stars against the black of space. "They better. Because if they don't, Phase 3 will show them something they'll never forget: what happens when humanity stops being nice and starts getting creative." The fate of two civilizations now hung in the balance, waiting for the Drachnid response. But one thing was already clear: the galaxy would never again mistake humanity's kindness for weakness. The Drachnid Empire's response came in an unexpected form. While their main fleet hung motionless in space, transformed into crystalline sculptures, a new threat emerged from hyperspace: the Drachnid Emperor's personal battle fleet, led by the massive dreadnought, Shadow of Conquest. "They've brought out their best toys," General Martinez observed, her voice crackling over the comm. "Looks like we got their attention." The Emperor's fleet was different from the others. Their ships were darker, absorbing light rather than reflecting it, and their hulls seemed to resist the crystal transformation. The Drachnids had learned from their first mistake and adapted quickly. Admiral White studied the tactical display with narrowed eyes. "They've coated their ships with energy-dampening materials," he noted. "Clever. But not clever enough. Begin Phase 3. Lieutenant Baker's fingers flew over his console. "Sir, the Bright Network is ready. All transformed ships are linked and synchronized." This was the true genius of humanity's plan. Each crystallized Drachnid ship had become part of a vast network, similar to humanity's ancient internet but operating on a quantum level through Brightwalker crystal technology. Every ship was now a node in the largest computing system ever created. The Emperor's voice boomed across all channels: "Return our ships and crews, humans. Or we will show you why the Drachnid Empire has ruled the outer reaches for 10,000 years." Admiral White's response was to push a single button on his command chair. Instantly, every crystallized ship began to pulse with light in perfect synchronization. The dark material coating the Emperor's fleet might resist crystal transformation, but it couldn't stop what came next. Fun fact about the Bright Walkers: White transmitted to the Emperor. They don't just manipulate energy, they can see all its forms, including the kind your ships use to stay hidden. Right now, every crystallized ship in this sector is acting as an antenna, mapping every detail of your fleet's systems. The Emperor's fleet launched a barrage of missiles, but they never reached their targets. The Crystal Network had already analyzed their guidance systems. Thousands of small energy pulses reached out, touching each missile with precise beams of light. The missiles didn't explode, they simply turned around and headed back to their launch points. That's the thing about fighting humans, White continued, his voice calm. We don't just use technology, we improve it. Your ships taught us exactly how your weapons work. And now we've taught those weapons to work for us instead. The Emperor's response was rage-filled. Impossible. No species can control our weaponry. Actually, White replied, we're not controlling them. We just ask them nicely. Another thing we learned from the Bright Walkers: even machines work better when you treat them with respect. As if to prove his point, more systems across the Emperor's fleet began to shut down. Their own computers, linked to the Crystal Network, were making choices of their own. Attack drones turned away from human ships. Shield generators powered down. Weapon systems went into maintenance mode. Last chance, Admiral White announced. Surrender, return what you've stolen, and we can end this peacefully. Continue fighting, and we'll be forced to show you why picking a fight with humanity and its allies was the worst mistake your empire has ever made. The Emperor's dreadnought suddenly lit up with warning lights as its own systems began to turn against it. In the command center, Admiral White waited patiently. The next few moments would determine whether this ended with a lesson learned or a demonstration of just how creative humans could get when protecting their friends. Either way, the galaxy was about to learn an important truth: humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their strategies. It was their ability to turn enemies into allies, whether those allies were living beings or the very machines meant to destroy them. The Drachnid Emperor had one last card to play. As his mighty dreadnought systems continued to rebel against his control, a hidden hangar opened in the ship's belly. What emerged made Admiral White lean forward in his command chair, eyes narrowing with concern. "Sir," Lieutenant Baker reported, "they're launching some kind of pods toward the crystallized ships. Hundreds of them." The pods were small and fast, each carrying teams of Drachnid engineers wearing strange, glowing suits. As they landed on the transformed ships, they began using tools that emitted dark energy, slowly reverting the crystal structures back to metal. "Clever," White muttered. "They developed anti-crystal technology. They've been planning for something like this." The Emperor's laughter filled the command channel. "Did you think we wouldn't prepare countermeasures? We've studied the Bright Walkers for years before attacking. Your crystal trick was impressive, but now it ends." But Admiral White smiled, and it wasn't a pleasant expression. "No," he said quietly. "Now it begins. Lieutenant Baker, send the signal." Suddenly, every crystallized ship's surface began to ripple like water. The Drachnid engineers in their special suits found themselves sinking into the crystal structures as if they were quicksand. Their anti-crystal tools flickered and died. "You studied the Bright Walkers as resources," White transmitted to the Emperor. "We studied them as friends. They taught us that their crystals aren't just solid, they can change their state. Right now, your engineers are being safely contained inside liquid crystal chambers. Don't worry, they can breathe. We're not monsters." General Martinez's voice came over the secure channel. "All engineer teams neutralized, sir. The Crystal Network is adapting to their anti-crystal technology, learning from it. We're actually getting stronger." The Emperor's response was immediate and desperate. He ordered his dreadnought to power up its main weapon, a massive cannon that could shatter planets. The ship's crystal infections had not yet reached its core systems. "If I can't have my fleet back," the Emperor roared, "I'll destroy it all." Admiral White's voice remained calm. "Look at your power readings, Emperor. Look carefully." The massive weapon began to charge, drawing energy from the dreadnought's core. But something was wrong. The more power it drew, the brighter the crystallized ships around it glowed. The crystal network wasn't just connected to their computers, it was connected to their power systems too. "The wonderful thing about the Bright Walkers," White explained, almost kindly, "is that they don't believe in waste. Every bit of energy you feed into that weapon is being redistributed through our crystal network. You're actually charging our defense systems." The Emperor's weapon fired. A beam of pure destruction lashed out, and was caught by thousands of crystal surfaces, bouncing between ships like light in a hall of mirrors. Each reflection weakened it further, the energy absorbed and transformed. When the beam finally dissipated, it hadn't destroyed a single ship. Instead, the crystal network glowed with more power than ever before. "Now then," Admiral White said, standing up from his command chair. "Since you've kindly donated all that energy to us, it's only fair we show you what humans and Bright Walkers working together can really do with it." Every crystallized ship in the fleet began to pulse with light in perfect harmony. The crystal network had evolved beyond anyone's expectations, creating something entirely new, a fusion of human military strategy and Bright Walker crystal technology. The Emperor watched in growing horror as his most powerful weapon had not only failed but made his opponent stronger. He was about to learn the most important lesson about humanity: when humans work together with their allies, they don't just win battles, they change the rules of what's possible. And the light show was just beginning. The energy absorbed from the Emperor's superweapon coursed through the crystal network, transforming it into something unprecedented. Each crystallized ship began to shine with colors that human eyes had never seen before, broadcasting on frequencies that made the Emperor's sensors overload and shut down. Admiral White stood on his bridge, watching the spectacle with a mix of awe and satisfaction. "Send the transmission," he ordered. "Let them see exactly what they've been fighting against." The crystal network activated its new capabilities, and suddenly every screen on every Drachnid ship lit up with images, not of weapons or war, but of history. The shared memories of the Bright Walkers played out before the Drachnid crew's eyes. They saw the Bright Walkers' first contact with humanity, not as conquerors or traitors, but as healers. They watched as human doctors worked alongside crystal beings to cure diseases that had plagued Earth for centuries. They witnessed Bright Walker scientists helping to repair Earth's damaged atmosphere, asking nothing in return but friendship. "You see," White's voice carried across all channels, "the energy you stole wasn't just power. It was knowledge. Memory. Culture. Every crystal you harvested contained the living history of a civilization that only wanted to help others grow." The Emperor's dreadnought hung in space, its weapons powered down, as its crew watched centuries of Bright Walker history unfold before them. They saw how the crystal beings had helped other civilizations before humanity, always giving, never taking. Lieutenant Baker's console lit up with new readings. "Sir, something's happening to the crystal network. The Bright Walker energy, it's evolving." The crystallized ships began to move, not through normal space, but by bending light itself. They formed a massive pattern in space, a lighthouse made of starships and living crystal, visible across half the galaxy. "This is what you could have had," Admiral White transmitted to the Emperor. "This is what the Bright Walkers offered to every civilization they met, the chance to grow beyond the need for conquest. The opportunity to become something greater than the sum of your weapons." The pattern of ships began to pulse, sending waves of energy that passed harmlessly through human vessels but caused every Drachnid weapon system they touched to transform. Not into crystal this time, but into something new, hybrid technology that could only work through cooperation between species. Your weapons won't fire now, White explained. They've been upgraded. They'll only function if both Drachnid and Brightwalker energy signatures are present, working together, not against each other. You wanted power? Here it is. But you'll have to share it, just like we do. The Emperor's voice had lost its arrogance, replaced by something close to wonder. How are humans capable of this? You're so young, so new to the stars. Because, White replied, we learned early in our history that real strength doesn't come from domination. It comes from cooperation. Every great achievement in human history happened when we worked together, not when we fought each other. The crystal network pulsed one final time, and the pattern of ships rearranged itself into a shape that made the Emperor gasp. It was the ancient symbol of his own people, not as a sign of conquest, but transformed into a beacon of cooperation and shared growth. So here's our final offer, Admiral White said, his voice firm but not unkind. Join us. Work with us. Let the Brightwalkers teach you what they taught us. Your empire can become part of something greater than conquest, a network of civilizations growing together, sharing knowledge, building a better galaxy for everyone. The Emperor's dreadnought hung silent in space as its crew watched their weapons transform into tools of cooperation. They faced a choice that would reshape their civilization, continue fighting alone, or join an alliance that had just proved itself more powerful than any weapon. And in the vast crystal network that had once been his battle fleet, the Emperor began to see a new kind of power, one that didn't require taking anything from anyone. The silence that followed Admiral White's offer seemed to stretch across the galaxy itself. The Emperor's dreadnought floated amid the glowing constellation of crystallized ships, its dark hull reflecting the peaceful light of transformation. Finally, the Emperor spoke, his voice different from before, humbled, but also thoughtful. In 10,000 years of ruling the Drachnid Empire, no one has ever defeated us. Yet here you stand, humans, not only defeating our greatest fleet but offering us friendship in the same breath. Admiral White smiled. That's because this was never about defeat. It was about understanding. Look at your ships now, they're more powerful than they ever were as weapons. Imagine what else they could become. The crystal network pulsed again, and this time, something remarkable happened. The Drachnid engineers who had been contained within the liquid crystal began to communicate with the Brightwalker energy patterns. Their anti-crystal technology, instead of fighting against the transformation, started to create something new, a perfect fusion of Drachnid industrial might and Brightwalker crystal wisdom. Sir, Lieutenant Baker reported, excitement in his voice, the engineers, they're innovating. They're working with the crystal network voluntarily now. The technology they're creating, it's beyond anything we've seen. General Martinez's voice crackled over the comm. The Drachnid crews in stasis are showing brain activity patterns consistent with learning. The crystal network is teaching them even while they sleep. The Emperor watched as sections of his mighty dreadnought began to transform, not under force, but through the willing participation of his own crew. The dark hull began to shimmer with veins of crystal that didn't consume the metal, but enhanced it. Weapons turned into energy collectors. Shield generators evolved into atmospheric healers. Perhaps, the Emperor said slowly, there is more power in creation than destruction. More strength in building than breaking. He paused, then added, the Drachnid Empire accepts your offer, Admiral White. We will join your alliance. White nodded. Then let's begin by returning your crews to duty. They have a lot of exciting work ahead of them. As the crystallized ships began the process of releasing their crews, the Brightwalker energy patterns formed one last image, a vision of the future. Human ingenuity, Drachnid strength, and Brightwalker wisdom working together to transform war-torn sectors of space into gardens of crystal and steel, where energy flowed freely and no species needed to steal from another. We came to this sector seeking power, the Emperor admitted. We never imagined we would find something far more valuable, the power of working together. Admiral White looked out at the transformed fleet, now a testament to what different species could achieve together. "That's the thing about humans," he said. "We're not the strongest, or the oldest, or the most advanced species in the galaxy. But we've learned one thing through all our history: the greatest power comes from turning enemies into friends." The crystal network gave one final pulse of light, and then settled into a steady glow, not a weapon or a prison anymore, but a bridge between civilizations. The transformed ships began to move in formation, not as a battle fleet, but as a coalition of allies ready to face the future together. As the combined fleet prepared to head home, Admiral White sent one last message to Earth: "Mission accomplished. But we didn't just stop a war today. We started something much bigger. The galaxy's about to change, and this time, it's changing for the better." The stars watched as human ships, crystallized vessels, and the Emperor's transformed dreadnought jumped to lightspeed together. They carried with them not just victory, but a lesson for any future civilization that might consider force over friendship. Humanity will always protect its allies, not through superior firepower, but through the greatest weapon of all: the power to turn enemies into family. And in the depths of space, the light of understanding continued to shine, brighter than any star.